There's a big misunderstanding among the Christian community that we have free will. Well, I'm here to tell you right now that free will is definitely not something that we have.
Did your God design you? And two, did your God know every choice you're going to make before you make it? If both of those conditions are met, then no, you don't have free will.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to my channel. Today's topic is very interesting. It's something very different for me because I don't often get into religion in majority. Well, a lot of my videos don't often talk about it. Sometimes, but not often. And this is something that I want to talk about. I want to share some videos with you about free will. Free will, a lot of people believe in free will, but I have to say, it's not in the Bible. It's not. I didn't see anything from my research that free will is in the Bible. I think that's more of a man made human concept. And there are a lot of people who believe in free will. Every time something terrible happens, they'll say it's because you get to exercise your free will. And I personally, I don't really know if I believe in free will. You know, people talk about fate and how things are already predestined. So how can you really have free will? But you know what really stands out to me that makes me disgusted with this free will stuff is when it comes to little ones being essayed and raped, and someone will say the perpetrator was given free will to do that to a little one. I don't believe in that. A little one, you know exactly what I'm talking about, who can't even talk, can't even speak a proper sentence, can't pray for protection or anything. No, I don't believe that someone has free will to essay and grape a little one. I don't support that whatsoever. So I knew something was wrong when people are supporting grown people doing things to little ones because they have so-called free will. I don't support a higher power that would allow such a thing like that. That's disgusting to me. So I want to be quiet, but before we get into it, before we get into it, I want to show you something really quick because there are a lot of people who will say every time something evil happens, it's the devil, it's Lucifer, the guy with the pitchfork monitoring almost 7 billion people or whatever, 4 to 7 billion people on the planet. Baby, look what it says in Isaiah 45:7. In the King James Bible, it says, I form the light and I create darkness. I make peace and I create evil. I, the Lord, do all of these things. So, how are you always trying to blame it on the so-called devil when it says in Isaiah 45:7 that the Lord God is admitting, I'm doing all of these evil things, I'm making all of these evil things happen. It's not Satan or Lucifer, I'm doing this to you, I'm doing this to the world, I'm doing this to letting this happen to the little ones. People can argue, don't tell me that it's out of context. It's right in your face, right there in your face. Let me be quiet and let's look at what people are saying about free will. Is free will a real thing? Does it really exist? Does it really exist? We're going to get into it.
Some of y'all Christians are in my comment section fighting for your lives like Christ didn't already die for it. It's alarming. Y'all trying to explain free will sounds like a partipperdack robber McScabber. That shit is not making a bit of fucking sense. This is what free will sounds like to a non-believer. Hey, I made you some cookies earlier. I put them on the table. Thanks. I think I'm gonna go for the snickerdoodle. It looks pretty good. Just be careful. It has poison in it. Oh, well then I'll just go for the chocolate chip. Yeah, that one has poison in it too. Are there any cookies that don't have poison in it? The sugar cookie doesn't. Is there a reason you put poison in all the other cookies except for the sugar cookie? Because I would have chose the sugar cookie. It's the one that I want you to choose. So I made that one without the poison. You're welcome. But why did you give the other options if you only wanted me to choose this one? Why didn't you just make all sugar cookies? Because I would seem controlling if I didn't give you options.
Free will is one of the biggest scams and lies that they teach you inside of Christianity. You hear it all the time from Christians. Oh, free will. God gave us free will. You got free will. All right, so imagine you get pulled over, right? They check your license, your registration, and then they come back and say, all right, you free to go. Cool. So you start driving off. About 30 seconds later, police cars come from everywhere. Sirens on, guns drawn, and you like, damn, what did I do? Oh, you were fleeing. But you told me I was free to go. You was free to go. But now you're going to jail because you fled from us. See what type of sense that make? That's that free will stuff that y'all preach. If you look up free will, by definition, the power to act without constraint or fate. Meaning, y'all always say, God got a plan for us. Everything is in God's plan and God's timing. God, he already know what you're going to do. He already know what you need before you ask. He already know what he going to do for you before you ask. So that means if you going to hell that y'all believe in, God already know you're going to be in hell. What's the point of your free will? Or if you're going to heaven, God already got a seat for you in heaven. So you don't really have free will if it's already aligned beforehand. Another thing Christians do to contradict themselves, which they love to do, they'll say things like this. Pull the free will card when they benefit from it. For example, I say, why didn't God intervene during slavery? Or when children are being abused and they praying to God, why don't God help? You can't blame God for that. We got free will. Humans did that. But then they'll flip around and do the exact opposite and say, won't he do it? Oh man, a bullet hit that man and missed his heart by 1 centimeter. That was God. Oh, so God intervened that time, but he didn't intervene the other time. What happened to the free will? See, y'all pick and choose when to use this free will stuff. But in reality, if I tell you you are welcome to try anything in my kitchen and you come out with a turkey sandwich and I cuss you out, you wasn't free to eat that turkey sandwich. Miss me with that free will.
Christians say God lets evil happen because he gave us free will. But think about that. Our free will is already limited. I can't choose to fly or breathe underwater or teleport. God has already limited what we can physically do. But do we call this him taking away our free will? No, because we can still act freely within those limits. So what's stopping God from limiting us from doing evil? You can't say free will because I just showed how he could restrict us and we'd still have it. He had no problem designing a world where we can't jump 30 feet in the air or turn into a fish, but somehow it was too far to design a world where we can't commit rape, genocide, or torture. No, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the universe should let us do everything. I'm saying the fact that we can't do everything proves God could have stopped evil the same way, without touching our free will at all. I do see, however, that these evils could exist for greater goods. However, God could have easily just built those greater goods into reality without the evil. You don't need rape for courage to exist. You don't need genocide for kindness to exist. And you don't need torture for love to exist. If an all-powerful God really needed evil in order to create good, then he's not all-powerful. And if he could have created the good without the evil, but chose not to, then he's not all good. Either way, I just don't see how this idea of a God is applicable to our universe.
It seems like at least once a week, we get into these conversations about free will and consequence and punishment. The commenter says, you're correct. He created all things, good and evil, and free will to choose your own path. However, we are not free from the consequences of our action. Well, consequences make sense with any kind of choice that you make, even choices that are made from free will. Consequences are things that naturally happen because you make a choice. But in this case, we're not talking about a consequence. We're talking about a punishment, and that's different. So, for example, if I do not want to be connected to your God and I don't want to be in a relationship with your God, the consequence is I don't get to join the party, right? I don't get to have the things that come from that relationship, which is fine because I don't want them. That's a consequence of me saying, no, I don't want your God. I don't want your Jesus. I don't want your book. But it doesn't stop there when it comes to Christianity. The problem is that there's now a punishment that's connected to a moral or theological or even social standard that I don't align myself with. So why should I have to be punished according to a standard that I don't want anything to do with? And I have a choice. I don't have to choose that religion because, right, free will, I do not have to choose that. So why do you punish me for exercising my free will to not choose what you want me to choose? Now, listen, I get that punishment has its place. So, for example, if I make a decision or do something that harms somebody, by all means, there should be a punishment attached to it. But me not choosing Jesus or God or the Bible, I'm not harming anyone else. I'm not doing any injustice or hurt to any other person. So why should you punish me when I'm not harming or hurting anyone else? So do choices have consequences? Absolutely, even when they're made from our own free will. But if your choice also has a punishment, that does not connect. That's actually contradictory to how free will is supposed to work. So your God can't say that I have free will, but then punish me according to their standard, which I am totally rejecting and don't want any part of. You can't punish me for that if you're saying that I have free will to make that decision. And one more thing, this whole punishment of having to go to an eternal place called hell where there's supposedly fire and whatever, is kind of disproportionate. All I'm doing is saying, no, I don't want you. And because I say no to your invitation, you're going to send me to a burning place forever because I simply said no. That does not make sense. And actually telling me that I have free will, but then punishing me for a decision I make using that free will and punishing me in a way that's immensely disproportionate to the choice that I make, it actually says a lot more about your God than it does about me. What kind of God does that? Make that make sense.
Free will never and has never been a good answer for the problem of evil. In the definition of free will, he could have created an earth where nobody had the desire to sin while still having free will. It seems like when Christians use this free will argument, they create their own definition of free will, or what they want it to mean. I don't need the option of sinning to have free will. Just like I don't need the option of being able to fly with my arms to have free will. Just like a lot of people don't think evil is going to be in heaven. How is that possible if you're supposed to still have free will, unless you don't? If you do think we have free will in heaven, it destroys that entire argument. Beyond that, if God is all-knowing, if he creates every single situation, there isn't any free will because he knows what you would do in every single situation. For example, let's say he knows if you are born into this family with these certain parents, you will become Christian and they will teach you Christianity. If you are born with these other parents who aren't Christian, they don't teach you Christianity, and then you don't become Christian because you aren't raised in it. You didn't have a choice there. That wasn't your choice. He knew what you were going to do in each situation. There is no free will. But what does contradict the definition of free will is acting based on fate. God says, worship me, follow me, or go to this, a place of eternal torment. That doesn't line up with the definition of free will because then people are acting based on fate. I love this quote I saw. It said, a puppet is free as long as it loves its strings. For free will to be able to explain the problem of evil, you have to completely change the definition of the entire word. Add your own things in there, add your own biases, and it just never works. One last thing I would like to add is many times when God gives people free will to do awful things, he's taking away other people's free will. For example, when he allowed people to have free will to own slaves and even gave a handbook on how to have slaves, he was taking away other people's free will. Or when God allows somebody to unalive somebody else, he's allowing them to take away their free will.
Christians love to say it's not about religion, it's about having a relationship with Jesus. Sounds nice, right? It sounds personal, it sounds freeing, except it's not, because underneath the surface, there's always the doctrine that you're a wretched sinner and that Jesus died to save you from the penalty of your sins. And if you don't believe that, you're gonna choose to go to hell. Wait a minute. That's not a relationship at all. It's an ultimatum. It's coercion. It's not based in love, which is the very essence of God. But it is based on fear, which is the opposite of love, and the most commonly used propaganda and manipulation strategy on earth is fear. Imagine if I told you we can be friends, but only if you believe this story about me, or if you ever question me, you'll be punished forever. Would you call that love, or would you call it abuse? A real relationship is built on trust, honesty, love, freedom. It's not built on fear or threats or repeating the right prayer or believing the right creed. Christianity disguises control as closeness. Rebranding religion as relationship makes it feel more authentic on the surface, which can easily lure more people in. But underneath that seemingly shiny exterior, it's still the same dogma. Believe the right things or burn for eternity. It's a hollow, whitewashed tomb. Jesus' true teachings about who we are and who God is have been replaced by doctrine that tells you that you're a hopeless sinner, born destined for hell, that you deserve eternal conscious torment, and that there's no way you can pay the supposed debt you owe to God for your sin. It tears you down by creating a psychological problem and then offers an oddly satanic solution in the form of a perfect human sacrifice to pay a debt. But it's a debt that never existed. Christianity has twisted the true meaning and teaching of Jesus' message that we are already free, forgiven, and loved. And it's made him into the sacrifice-based religion instead, which is the very thing that Jesus came to destroy. Because if God truly is love, and love keeps no record of wrongs, then why did Jesus have to die for God to forgive our sins? Who was keeping the record? Who is receiving the payment?
Can you make this make sense? The commenter says, you cannot actually have free will if he removes sinful nature. Being told you can make any choice but bad ones is not actually free. So here's what I don't understand. If God's intention was for us to not sin, why would he build within us the ability to do that? That doesn't make any sense. Let me give you an example. If I want a sweet cake, I don't put salt in my cake and then complain that it's not sweet. Or if I decide that I'm going to be a vegetarian, I don't put beef in my meals and then complain that there's beef in my meals. Because I said I wanted to be a vegetarian, so I just wouldn't put beef. I wouldn't put meat in my food, because that's what vegetarians do. So if you want people that don't sin, why would you give them the ingredients? Why would you make them with a sinful nature? And I know you Christians are going to say, well, he didn't give us a sinful nature. He created it. We wouldn't have the capacity to sin if it wasn't for him giving us the ability and the capacity to do that. So if he didn't want us to sin, why give us the ability to do it? And I know some of you are going to say, well, that means you wouldn't be freely choosing him. The ability and capability to sin has nothing to do with me choosing God. You can take out all the sinful stuff. You can take it out. And guess what? I still can either choose or not choose God. They have nothing to do with each other. Absolutely nothing to do with each other. And they don't have to. So can somebody make that make sense?
The God of the Bible doesn't really seem that smart. Think about it. If you're an all-knowing God who's all-wise, you have to realize how stupid free will actually is. So you know that giving people free will allow them to harm people and unalive people and abuse people and just do all kinds of evil things. So if you know that that's a result of free will, why would you create free will in the first place? He could have designed this entire world any way he wanted. He could have designed us any way he wanted. He intentionally chose to design us with free will that he knew would lead us to harming each other or hurting each other and just doing some really vile things. Why would that ever seem like a good idea? Now, I'm no God, but let's say I created a city and I've got thousands of people who live in this city. And in the center of the city is my temple. And I want people to come into that temple every day at 6 o'clock. Because every day at 6 o'clock, that's where we're going to have an amazing party. I'm going to get to spend time with them. I created this temple for them to come and hang out with me. That's it. Now, the people that are in this town, they live on the outskirts of the city, right? They're still part of the city, but it's on the outside. And in between where they live and where the temple is, there's some terrain because I wanted to show off how creative I was. So on the north side, at the very top, it's really icy and it's really cold. And there's 4 or 5 layers of ice. And underneath that, there's really, really cold water. On the west side, it's about 50 miles of rocks and glass between where they live and where the temple is. And on the south side, it's lava. I'm talking about molten lava, super, super hot. And then on the east side, it's about 50 miles of raging ocean all around. Now, here's the thing. Everybody still needs to get there by 6 o'clock. I mean, I gave them legs. They have hands. They can think. I gave them everything they need so they could figure it out, right? So there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to show up at 6 o'clock on time. And I suppose that I could have created bridges for them to walk or drive over all the terrains that I created, but I don't want to intervene with their free will. I don't want to intervene with their ability to choose how to get there. So I'm going to let them figure it out themselves. Now, of course, you can see this makes no sense, right? Because I knew exactly what was going to happen. I created the entire system. I created all the obstacles, but I still demanded that they show up on time at 6 o'clock. What would my purpose be in doing that? Why would that ever make sense? So taking this back to the God of the universe, if he really wanted to commune with us, why would he create something like free will if he knew that giving us that free will was going to take us in the opposite direction from the thing that he wanted us to do? That doesn't seem very smart if he had the ability to create something completely different. Make that make sense.
And whenever you're talking about heaven and hell, not believing in it, or how it doesn't make sense in the context of a loving and caring father, being able to say you can point back to when humans literally made it up. Church people love to be like, you're forgetting about one thing, free will. What about free will? We have the choice. You're choosing hell. Listen, let me tell you something. This is where cognitive dissonance comes in. If it costs me my life, it ain't free. This would not be a weird concept to grasp.
And we're literally not forgetting about it. Outside of the context of church, free will is just being a regular grown adult who can make their own decisions. It's only a novel concept to church people whose mind is controlled by others. Oh, I can make my own choices. Well, duh, who forgot that? Why is that something that to even forget? Except when you are constantly controlled by other people, you have to remind yourself that you can make your own choices. It's only a novel concept to religious people.
I'm going to say it again. If it costs me my life, it's not free. And these are intelligent, educated, capable people saying stuff like this because religion has brainwashed them so bad. In no other way would somebody be able to tell you the only way you get this free gift of love is if you do exactly what I say and only what I say from now until eternity. You would say that's not free. That's conditional. That is but only in the sense of Christianity, because you've been told that since you were a kid. Does that even make sense to a logical thinking person? It ain't free if it costs me my life. Like, that's not even a big jump. That's not even hard to say. Like, if it costs me everything, it's the will ain't free. If I don't do exactly what you want and exactly what you say, you'll kill me? That's the choice that I have? You're killing yourself because you're choosing to reject the gift. If I reject the gift, I die? That makes sense to you? You would serve a guy like that? Those are his ways are higher than our ways. Humans literally made that up when Christianity was coming out of favor. And this is what I don't understand, how church people can see how the people who are in power right now are twisting scriptures, are manipulating the word to make it fit to whatever their little ideologies are. You think that people just started doing that? That's how we got this Bible in the first place. And why are y'all so dense that y'all act like y'all can't see that? You can see it happening right now in real time, and you're so against that. Y'all have such a righteous indignation about that. But then when we're saying, well, guess what? They didn't just start this. They've been doing it for centuries. They actually did it with Christianity and with this Bible. As a matter of fact, they've been lying and manipulating stuff in their favor to control people this whole time. Not with the Bible, though. Absolutely with the Bible. That's literally the whole point of the Bible. You can see it happening in real time right now with what's happening with Christianity, what's happening with the MAGA people, what's happening with the evangelicals, and you could totally acknowledge it and see it for what it is, but you think that this is the first time this has ever happened? This has been happening. They have been doing this. They absolutely did it with the Bible, and we just accepted it hook, line, and sinker. The people who were teaching us, our earlier ancestors were not super educated. They were not taught to question the status quo. They were not taught to go against the grain. They were taught to follow. And that's why it's important for you to keep having children. The institutions that push children on women the most are the institutions that abuse children the most. They're forcing you, they're incorporating that into the doctrine of being fruitful, of multiplying, of filling the earth, of spreading the gospel, of whatever, however you want to call it, and making that a part of the religion so that you can continue to feed their supply. The specific denominations and sects of religion that discourage women from birth control, from family planning, and encourage them to have multiple children are the ones who abuse children the most. You think that's a coincidence? Where are we going to get a fresh supply? It's your duty. This is what God is requiring of you. Well, I can't take care of the child. I'm poor. Give the child to the church. And what does the church do? Buy sexual abuse insurance so that perverted men can abuse those same children that they forced you to have. This is the first time in history this is happening. This has always happened at every point of history. Wake up, people.
Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. All of these people that are new to spirituality, that are telling you you can create your own reality, are either lying to you or they don't understand what it is that they're talking about. In order for you to be able to create your own reality, you have to have free will. And I'm not saying that free will doesn't exist, because it does exist. It's just you don't have it in this state, because free will only belongs to the soul. And the only time we have free will is when we are in our etheric state, when we are outside of this body. While you are in this incarnation, you don't have any free will. Your life is very much governed by fate. Every single experience that you go through was already pre-programmed and was already decided by your soul before you were even born. Your soul picked this life for you. No matter how much I believe in my imagination to be a white female, I will always remain a black male. No matter how hard I believe in my imagination to be 7 feet, I will always be 6'4". No matter how hard I believe in my imagination to be a lion, that will never, ever be true. No matter how hard I believe in my imagination that I can fly, that will never, ever be possible in this incarnation without me using a vehicle to do so. Everything that we want, everything that we imagine, everything that we desire, everything that transpires, and every single experience and occurrence that happens in our life was already pre-programmed and pre-planned by our soul. Every thought, feeling, impulse, emotion, everything that makes you who you are and makes your life what it is was already decided for you at a soul level before you were even born. We have no control over our destiny whatsoever. Our life is very much a story that has already been written from start to finish. We're just reading our story. Or if you want to consider it a movie, we're just watching our movie play out. And we're supposed to be learning from the character in the movie. You are watching this character in your movie. You are the one reading about this character in your story. You are the one reading. You're supposed to be watching, learning, and growing and evolving. Your life is going to be what it's going to be regardless of how you feel about it. We are not here to master our destinies and master our fates. We're just here to learn from the experiences that we go through, so that when this incarnation is done, our soul can raise to a higher level of consciousness due to the lessons that we learned from this lifetime. All of these incarnations that we're going through are teaching us about the universal laws, because one has to become subservient to the laws of nature before one can master them. And when you master them, you literally become them. That's what all these experiences that you're going through is accumulating to and is leading up to.
The more aware your soul becomes of the reality in which it is living in, the higher your vibration will become. When your soul is ready, you can then begin to be initiated into the higher laws, which allows you to open up your heart chakra, which awakens you to the frequency of ascension, which gives you eternal life. This is what allows you to break the reincarnation cycle. And if your soul is ready to learn and realize these higher laws so that you can awaken your heart chakra and gain eternal life, click the link in my profile bio and read my book, ebook, Awakening the Divine Mind.
There's a big misunderstanding among the Christian community that we have free will. Well, I'm here to tell you right now that free will is definitely not something that we have. Humans do not have free will. If there was a God who is omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, there is no way that we can have free will. You might ask this question, why exactly, Nefari, are you saying that we don't have free will? Because God gives us a choice. He lets us choose. We do anything that we want to do. But I want you to look at it from this way. You have a God who is all-knowing. Before he created anything, he was just there, apparently. All-knowing. He lives outside of time, space, or whatever. So he knows every single possibility of anything that's happening, past, present, and future. He knows what you're going to eat. He knows what you're going to drink. He knows how you're going to live your life. He knows if you're going to follow him or not. He knows that well in advance before you're created. A lot of people say that, yes, God knows everything. You know, he knows what we're going to do. He knows what we're going to do as we live our life, but that doesn't mean that we don't have free will, because God does not intervene in that. God still lets you live your life. You still have free will. It's you that's still doing what you're doing. But what people really fail to understand, what a lot of Christians fail to understand, is that, well, all Christians, what they fail to understand is that while you are doing what you're doing, you would not be able to do those things if you weren't created in the first place. The moment that God created you is the moment that you lost your free will, because you did not ask to be here. None of us asked to be here. So therefore, what I'm saying is that we all were created with God knowing if we will go either to heaven or if we will go to hell. We were created with God already knowing whether we would follow him or we would not follow him. So therefore, we have no free will in that, due to the fact that we were created against our will. We weren't even asked if we wanted to be created. He created us by his own will, not ours. So that in itself is not free will. So basically what we are doing right now in this life that we're living out a life that God already knew every single thing what was going to happen. We're living out that life. We are walking in that life. And you know, people say God has a plan. God has a plan. Very interesting. But he also gives you free will. When Jesus was on the cross, he said, "Not my will, but your will be done." Christians say that a lot too. Not my will, but your will be done. Meaning that you're putting your will in his hands, basically. You're saying, I don't have no will right now. Your will be done. It's very interesting. At the end of the day, Christians, you do not have free will. There is no free will. No matter how you try to spin it, and I guarantee there's going to be people on this video who's going to comment in the comment section and say, we have free will. That's always the answer. God gives us free will to do anything. Well, just because God knew what we were going to do doesn't mean that we don't have free will. That's what they're going to say. Probably in my comment section. But I'm telling you right now, we don't have free will. For the simple fact that God already created you. He created you. You didn't ask to be created. He created you knowing that you would not choose him. Knowing that this person over here is going to go to heaven because they chose him. And then some people say, well, God, you can change things. God created he made a way for us to change our lives through Jesus Christ. He made a way. I really don't understand that, because God still knows what you're going to do, and God still knows if you're going to choose him or not, regardless if he created a redemptive way or whatever. God still knows if you're going to choose him or if you're not going to choose him. He still knows before you were even created. But yet you were created anyway. So at the end of the day, if you go to heaven or if you go to hell, as far as what your belief says, then whose fault is it really? Is it yours? Or is it God? Something to think about.
I'm going to try to prove to you that we don't have free will. This will be a longer video, so stay with me. First of all, think of a number between 1 and 10. If you chose 7, you might feel like you chose it, but where did that come from? Why didn't you choose 3 or 9? That's because that choice just appeared in your mind. That was done in the dark of your attention and popped into your conscious mind. And now with neurological studies, we can actually track that your brain makes decisions before the part of you that feels like a you knows what you're going to choose. Your decisions arise from unconscious processes that are beyond your control and awareness. If I say push a button anytime you want, through science, I can actually tell when you're going to push that button before you know when you're going to push that button, because I can track with neurology when that decision is actually made. Let's talk about brain tumors. You can change a part of the brain because of pressure from a tumor and have a completely different person. Let's talk about split brain studies where this part of your brain is actually a different person than this part of the brain, and they would actually make different choices. Let's talk about the hungry judge experiment, where the ability of a judge to let someone go is directly correlated to when they ate last. Because things like hormones and blood sugar and sleep definitely affect how we act and the decisions that we make. But if you ask that judge, hey, why did you let that guy off and not that guy? He would have some kind of logical explanation. That's what our brain does. Oh, I did it because of this and not this. When really the actual reason was I was hungry then and I wasn't now. If you rewind time, you would have always done what you did. For it to be free, it would mean that you would have done or could have done something different. But in reality, your choices are this complex web of causes that has an input, most of which we can't see, that then leads to an output. And this is where I get people saying, okay, maybe some things are just kind of determined or caused in that way. But there are some times where I transcend my usual thought pattern. And there are times in meditation where I feel like I'm making a very conscious, intentional choice. But all that's doing is backing the problem up a step. Because did you choose to become the kind of person who would have meditated that day? You didn't choose your parents, your genetics, your upbringing. You didn't choose a single thing about you. You didn't even choose your core values. So the question you always have to ask is, did I choose to become the kind of person who would have chosen A over B, even though you feel like that's a conscious choice? And the answer is no, you didn't choose any of that. And then this is where some people bring in quantum physics. And they bring in randomness. But randomness plus determinism doesn't get you to free will. That's just randomness with determinism. And then some people will say, well, if we don't have free will, why are you even talking about this? Because you can't change people's mind. It's the exact opposite. People change their mind with new information because we don't have free will, because it's a new input into your system. Otherwise, no one would change their opinion about everything. I wouldn't have chosen to lose my faith, especially when I was a believing Mormon. I never would have chose that. But new information came into my system and dominoes started falling into my brain. And then one day I realized that I don't believe this anymore. And then some people will say, well, then if we don't have free will, then we can't change anything. We can't do anything. And it's the opposite. We can actually do incredible things because we know what buttons to push. I know, for example, what buttons to push me to the edge of nihilism. It would be really sugary foods, especially chocolate for me for some reason. Not sleeping, too many numbing behaviors, doom scrolling the suffering around the world. If I push those buttons, I know that my thoughts regarding nihilism and my philosophy are going to change, and I'm going to get more depressed and nihilistic. So I then do other inputs instead to get the output that I want. So then people will say, well, is that free will? Because you're choosing to push different buttons into your system to get the output that you want. And no, that's still not free will. Because why did I choose to become the kind of person who would want to do that? Why would I have those resources? Because of things I didn't choose. Like, it still goes back to the mystery of something that I didn't choose. And then people will say, well, it doesn't matter if I don't actually have free will because I feel like I have free will. And so I'm just going to go with the subjective feeling. But if you actually pay attention, what is your next thought going to be? Like, choose your next thought. It's like, no, that happens to you if you actually pay attention. If you actually pay attention to your brain for 5 minutes, tell me that you have free will. You don't choose anything that's going on in there. If you want to prove to me that we don't have free will, choose right now to believe in unicorns and choose to not have a thought for the next 5 minutes. How's that going? When you decide to go on a diet or you're going to start some new habit, do you choose the day that you're going to fall off the wagon? Or is that a bunch of kind of things happening in your unconscious that actually lends you to making a decision that I'm actually going to binge today? And what's amazing is how much the brain tries to make logic out of things that are happening in the unconscious. So the decision is made in our unconscious. And then when we make the decision, we put logical reasons to it afterwards. So if we're doing a split brain study and the right hemisphere, which controls the left hand, is shown the word apple and picks up an apple, and then you ask the left hemisphere, which is responsible for speech, to like, why did you pick up this apple? You will say, I was hungry. And you will believe that you picked up that apple because you were hungry, but you don't know that this other part of the brain actually was the one that did it. So you can get this through philosophy, you can get this through neuroscience, you can get this through just basic biology, that things have a cause, you can get this through determinism, you can get this through meditation. But in order to prove that we do have free will, you'd have to have a group of neurons unconnected to the past and unconnected to other neurons, making a decision completely unrelated to everything else. Or you'd have to be omniscient. You'd have to be so, like, you're such a meditator that you actually control you're aware of everything that your brain is doing. You are at one time running your blood pressure and your heart rate and you're blinking and you're doing that all with conscious behavior. And for people who say, oh, because it's coming from my own brain, then it's free will, that's just not how we've ever defined free will. So that's to me just like moving the goalpost and changing definitions because you're uncomfortable with this idea. We've never called free will, oh, it's free if it's coming from your own brain. That's the difference between that is just voluntary response and involuntary response. And there is a difference. There is a difference between voluntary response and someone, hitting my knee and my knee popping up and having that be involuntary. There are differences between that. But that's not free will, and that's never been how we discuss free will. And then you get to the argument. Sorry, I've had this conversation with so many people, like I just know where people's brains are going to go. Then you get to the argument, well, it's better to believe in free will because then you believe that you have control and autonomy and we can't do the justice system any other way. But we are already starting to change our justice system based on what we're learning about the brain. We convicted 2 parents of a school pew-pew because they didn't get the help that their kid needed in order to stop this decision that he was going to make. We used to kick kids out of school because they had dyslexia, and then we learn about the brain and that they didn't have a conscious decision to be able to read better or pay attention better in school, and then we adjusted school so that it served them better. So not having free will actually gives us so many opportunities to say, okay, what are the buttons we need to push to keep people from becoming criminals? What are the buttons we need to push that tends towards human well-being in society? How do we properly incentivize ourselves and other people because we don't have free will? That's a far better question. And it's a question that we're already working on based on learning more about the brain. We don't put people in prison anymore simply because they have schizophrenia and they have a demon inside of them. Like, we learned about the brain, and we actually can have some compassion even if we do need to remove people from society. If you've lasted through this whole thing, which I think are maybe 2 people, just know I did an entire YouTube video on the loss of free will and the loss of identity, that illusion of the self, and then what that means for your life. And so if you want more on this, that's probably as much time as I have today. If you want more on this, I do a whole YouTube on this and how we can actually adjust our lives accordingly so you don't feel like you're a robot. But I hope that cleared some things up. And whether or not you agree with me or not is because you don't have free will. Is because however these words land for you is because of conditions that come far before me. So my ability to change your mind or not change your mind is because of conditioned things that are outside of my control.
Did your God design you? And 2, did your God know every choice you're going to make before you make it? If both of those conditions are met, then no, you don't have free will. So if God designed you, that means who you are is his choice. He picked what you would look like. He picked what your personality would be like. He picked your intellect. Are you extroverted or introverted? He picked all of those things. And then he placed you with particular parents. And God knew the impact of all of God's decisions. And so while God was designing you, he would know, well, if I give you a little more extroversion, or I change this about your personality or who you are, look, I can tweak that and see how their decisions would be different. So God knew how he would design you, how that would affect all of your decisions in the future. So if you both design a person and have perfect knowledge of how your design will impact all of their decisions, that you are being engineered to do certain things and you don't have free will.
Okay, so that is it for today's video. I want to know, what do you think? Do you think that free will is a real thing, or is that an illusion that man has made up to find peace? Even though, will you really find peace? I mean, seriously? Is it something you just tell yourself so that, I can just go on living? And sure, you can make your own decisions, but according to a lot of religious people, God already knows everything you're going to do anyway, and your whole fate has already been predestined and everything. So you're just playing this game, and everything is playing out the way that it's supposed to. Every decision you made was the decision you were going to make that's going to lead up to something. Now, I have a little bit more thoughts on that, but I'm working on something to reveal something that y'all not quite ready for. Some people say, I'll put it out there, people talked about the Matrix and things like that, and simulations and things like that. That's the most I'm going to tell you for right now. But I really want to know, what do you think about this? Does free will even make any sense to you, or is it a bunch of nonsense to you? Let us know in the comments section. What do you think about free will? Do you really feel that you have the free will? Or again, is that just something that we made up as human beings for stuff we don't understand, or to be able to sleep at night, but you really don't have it like you think you do? Let us know what you think. I'll be reading your comments in the comments section, baby. Please like, share, and subscribe.